I bet you're pretty tired of me promoting my review for Castlevania Bloodlines, right? Yeah, probably. But here's the deal. I've got brand new information about Castlevania Bloodlines and the Castlevania franchise that has never been publicly revealed before, including names of Belmonts, names of characters that are totally brand new characters, and a link to the Van Helsing family? Yeah, we're getting super nerdy on this video, where I dive into a fax from Konami's Chicago office, which is in terribly broken English, but I was still able to go through this thing and take out a ton of really interesting information. We learn about how the Alucard spear was found. We learn about the process of the Belmont vampire killer whip. And we learn that there's 3 different whips in this whole thing. So if you thought Vampire Killer was the primary whip, that is incorrect according to this fax. And that was my dog. Anyways, so yeah, this is a 9-page document that I bought online. I got it on eBay. There was a seller that was selling a bunch of old EGM, basically when they put the layout together for the EGM magazine, the old school EGM magazines. The person was selling those layouts, okay? Those are not easy to come by. And one of the things that they were selling was this, a fax about Castlevania Bloodlines, basically going over the history of not only the entire Castlevania franchise as we knew it back then, but diving into a lot of additional information that's never been revealed before, at least not on any website that I've found. So this fax, it was held onto by an EGM writer. Unfortunately, I reached out to the seller and was like I looked over their listings and I looked over who they were and everything, and I couldn't really find that much information on the seller themselves. So I reached out to him privately. Unfortunately, the messages themselves are too old. I've been meaning to do this video since April when I got this thing, but I was not able to. So if you see a name down here or an explanation, it's because I reached out recently to try to get the name, and I will update in the description if they do reach out to me if I don't get it in time by the time this video comes out. But what you need to know is that she was the widow of one of EGM's writers that was a huge Castlevania fan, and unfortunately the writer passed away. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. It might be Jeremy, but don't quote me on that. I don't think it's Jeremy Parrish, because I think he's still alive. And I don't even remember if he wrote for EGM. I can't remember. But the point I'm trying to make is there was a writer that wrote for EGM who held on to this basically as a Castlevania, I don't know, like thing that nobody else had. And so this paper, I mean, it's not a copy. It's the original master copy that was sent via fax. The paper is pretty clearly, I mean, the date right here, if you look at the date, right there, it says 2/10/94. This whole thing was stapled together. I had to unstaple it to remove the staple so that way I could get it uploaded in PDF format. Now here's the thing, I'm not just holding on to this for myself. I'm gonna hold on to the physical copy because I paid for it, but I want to distribute this to the public. I want this information to get out there so that way people could share it, people could talk about it. So if you want this PDF, just shoot me an email at dyhptg@gmail.com, link down here, and I'll be glad to send you the PDF. You know, I'm not putting this online anywhere like on an automated thing where you can go in and download it to your heart's content, just because I want people who actually want this thing to reach out to me and be like, hey, I really want this for myself. What I'm hoping is that Castlevania websites reach out to me so that way we can get the information updated that's online. You know, some of the information that you're gonna see is going to be relevant to future games in the franchise as well. That weren't out when this came out, you know, so that sort of stuff can be updated. It's really interesting, this entire document. If you're a super Castlevania nerd like me, You're gonna love this video. If you are not a Castlevania fan, or you are just not interested in learning about the history of a game and the franchise, then please don't watch this video because it's pretty long. And I read this entire document out and give my on-demand feedback about what I think about it. The writing is pretty bad as far as this goes. It was, I definitely stumbled a lot while I was reading through it, but I wanted you guys to get my live impressions, so to speak, on this document, and I try to break down as much as I can for you. So here it is. Here's the Castlevania Bloodlines facts from EGM to you, the viewer. I hope you enjoy this video. I've been really excited about this, and I've been wanting to show this to you guys for months. I just haven't had time to sit down and do it, but now I do. So enjoy.
All right, so this facts coming directly to us from Konami. This was originally sent to EGM's offices, and so we're gonna dive deep into this one and find out all the details, all the nitty gritty. So sit back, relax, grab a drink, and let's go to it. So the historical background on the era set up in the early 20th century. In 19th century Europe, industrialization by machines which utilize steam engines has progressed quickly. In European strong economic countries like UK, France, Germany, Italy, Russia, and etc. began to invade Africa and Asia. While the UK and France made great success with effective policies, Germany and Italy got behind in their plantation plans. Austria equals Hungary Empire, Ottoman Turkey Empire were in trouble to handle the single-race independent struggles inside. Those led to gradual power gap and created hostility among them. Now, I just want to take a sidebar here and say that this whole document is riddled with bad grammar, lots of, to put it, as lightly as I can, broken English, or there's a lot of situations where there's names that you may be seeing that for certain characters that are miswritten, spelled completely wrong. A lot of that was just the Japanese to English translation. I'm pretty sure that they got somebody directly from Konami Japan or something, that maybe they funneled this to the English offices and it just got mistranslated. So just keep that in mind while we're reading this. It was the only defense plan for those empires to form an alliance with other countries. Germany, Italy, and Australia formed a triple alliance. So UK, France, and Russia did a triple entente. The tension between them brought the balance in Europe. However, the technology development and over-militarization helps creating dreadful weapons which turn Europe into a huge arsenal. That situation continued for a certain period, and people were no longer expecting any big war. But in June, the World War I bursted out. They used all those new weapons, such as German U-boat, poison gas, air fighters, and tanks. In December 1916, Germany conquered Romania, and Central Imperial Force, Germany-Austria alliance, occupied the Eastern Europe. But this war started to finish after U.S. participation in 1917. This game is being set up in 1917 and has following stories and as connections with the real history. Again, as you could see, lots of broken English and incorrect grammar. So this is getting into what's basically set up the connections with the real world history and how this story for Castlevania Bloodlines kind of came to form. I talked about this quite a bit in my review of Castlevania Bloodlines fairly recently, but this is, of course, straight from Konami directly. So Elizabeth executes the assassin of Austrian prince. Elizabeth Bartley has a hatred against the imperial family of Austria, also the Hungary Empire, since she was captured and confined by a Hungarian king on December 30th, 1610. That's a very specific date that's listed for this. I don't think we've ever received a specific date of this is exactly when it happened. And so that's kind of interesting. I can't remember what I said in my review, but whatever I got, it was based off of information prior to me diving into this article. Outbreak of the World War I. I think it's really funny that they keep saying the World War I, but I don't know, that's just me. It was needed for reviving Satan, and that's got a line through it, like a cross. So I think they wrote it out and then realized how ridiculous that sounded and wrote Dracula. I don't know. I'm not sure why they did that. And, I've seen that a few times in this document, if I recall. Dracula's sold to make all over Europe a killing and confused field. Okay, and then it says equals the environment which is easy to revive, as well as millions of dead, which equal sacrifice. Then Elizabeth guided to the war by black magic. Again, a lot of this just is very broken. End of the World War I. In 1917, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but it's funny. The World War I. Anyways, in 1917, Elizabeth was killed and Dracula failed to revive. What's odd about this, though, is that they're saying in 1917 she was killed. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't line up with what we're talking about, unless we're saying in 1917 is when Elizabeth died at the hands of John Morris or / Eric Lecarde, which is what I'm thinking. That's how they're trying to phrase this. So basically, it's kind of lining all of this up, saying here's the beginning of Bloodlines, here's the end of Bloodlines. Satanic grudge faded away from Europe. After this year, it's gone to a place of death. All right, now we're on page 2. Vampire Hunter versus, again, Satan is crossed out, and they wrote Dracula. So Vampire Hunter versus Dracula, their history of fights. So this breaks down basically the history of the Castlevania franchise as we know it, or as we did know it. But what's interesting here is they mentioned Star Wars. I'll go ahead and read this. We made a chronicle which shows 3 stories of past, present, and future. Total 9 series of Dracula, like Star Wars series. We created some of them. Please check before quoting. Okay. Well, I think Konami created all of them, at least in terms of the Castlevania series, but okay. So A, past, beginning of fight. 1, the first A Dracula subjugation in the 15th century. Main character, Ralph C. Belmonte. So that's Trevor, because he's known as Ralph in Japan. Title, The Legend of Satanic Castle. Contents, the first fight between Dracula and humans. So this, of course, goes against what would be laid out in future games with Castlevania Legends, if you do consider that actually canon. Some fans do. I'd like to think it is, but then again, you've got Lament of Innocence thrown in there afterwards. So, that is not the first fight between Dracula, but it's the first fight between, it's the first story of Castlevania, so to speak. So anyways, the first fight between Dracula and humans, Cypher, Grant, and Lecarde, which, again, that's Cypher is supposed to be Sypha. Grant is okay, and then Lecarde, which is supposed to be Alucard, left to subjugate Urukai, which I guess they're saying is Dracula, but never come back. At last, Ralph of Hunter clan, the Belmonte family, rose up. Okay, I'm kind of confused on Urukai or Uraki. Maybe like Uraki. I don't know. That could also be a V for Veraki, like Vlad or something. I don't know. I'm gonna go with Uraki. Anyways, the second Dracula subjugation is the main character's Christopher Belmonte, or Christopher Belmont. Title is The Legend of Dracula, which was the Game Boy game Castlevania Adventure. Contents, Satan, Dracula, revived as a vicious sorcerer. Christopher of the Belmontes tries to kill him. The second Dracula subjugation, the sequel in the middle of the 16th century. Main character Christopher Belmonte. Title, Legend of Dracula 2 in the Game Boy, which is also known as Belmont's Revenge here in the US. Contents, 15 years has passed since then. Christopher's son, unmatured vampire hunter, disappeared, and 4 mysterious castles suddenly show up. So that's Christopher's son, who I believe his name is Soleil, and you end up fighting him at the end of the game. Christopher rose up again And now we go to present. Fatal Duel. Now, I don't know why they say present. I think maybe I don't know. Maybe they're looking at this in terms of like, previous years, or maybe like present history. I don't know. I really don't know like what they were trying to pronounce here as far as this, A part with past, present, and then future is coming up in a minute. Present, Fatal Duel. Satanic castle subjugation in the middle of the 17th century. Main character, Simon Belmonte, also known as Simon Belmont. Title, Satanic Castle Dracula. It says Famicom Disk System, Super Famicom, etc. So they're factoring in the Super Famicom or Super Nintendo version of the game, which was Super Castlevania 4 here in the US. Contents, the Count Dracula, who has been killed by the hero Christopher Belmonte, was revived by heretics. Simon from Belmonte's rose up, the first title of Dracula series. And I like that they say etc. because it means they're factoring in, Haunted Castle, Vampire Killer, and probably also the Sharp X68000 versions as well. Curse of Dracula in the middle of the 17th century. Main character Simon Belmonte. Titled Dracula 2, The Cursed Seal, which is also known as Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. In Japan, it's called Dracula 2, Noroi no Fuin. Contents, Dracula was reviving again despite he must have had been killed. Okay, that's a very broken English sentence. Simon set out to release the Cursed Seal, which was killing his body. 3. The second Satanic Castle subjugation in the middle of 18th century. Here's what's really kind of bananas. Main character, I think this is Lahiter Belmonte, the ground son of Simon. So I believe, if I recall, the great-grandson or grandson of Simon, I can't remember off the top of my head, is Just Belmont, who was in Harmony of Dissonance. But this is, of course, was years and years later. So this is saying the grandson of Simon. So they're saying this like they've got it set up, like this is something that's gonna happen. I've never heard of this before. This is brand new information. Yeah, so the direct descendant, I just looked it up. The direct descendant and grandson of Simon Belmont is Just Belmont. So this character that they're trying to set up is supposed to be Just. I always call him Just. Might be a good gaming linguistics episode. How to pronounce this guy's name. So yeah, in Harmony of Dissonance, that's the character that appears, and in that game you can also play as Simon Belmont in the boss rush mode, believe it or not. So yeah, little tip for you. So this is going against that. This is saying that his name is Lahiter or Lahiter. My question is, if that was his intended name, and if there was a game that was going to be created for this, did they just pull this out of nowhere, or was this an actual plan for this game to exist? I mean, it says title, ? Contents, ? So clearly, Konami had a plan to create a game featuring Simon Belmont's grandson. This is grandson. Future, the new fight. So this goes into Dracula goes to England, the end of the 19th century, 1897. Main character, it says Quincy Morris. It's supposed to be Quincy Morris and others. Title, Dracula 1897 by Bram Stoker. So they're basically factoring in Quincy Morris, which I talked about again in the Bloodlines review. Contents, the first Dracula title. He leaves his hometown Transylvania, which is misspelled, for searching new blood. The revival of Dracula. This is the early 20th century. Now this gets into Bloodlines. Main character, Johnny Morris and Eric Lecarde. Again, Lecarde, Ricard. There's some broken English there, English. Title, Vampire Killer. That's what it was called in Japan. Contents, please refer to the setup information. Number 3, Satan of the 20th century in the middle of 20th century, 1940. Okay. Main character, unknown. Title, unknown. And contents, unknown. So, based on this, they're setting up a future game that's supposed to take place in 1940, which never came to be. There was no game that took place in 1940. So was this a planned game that they were working on? Were they going to make 2 additional games that never got created? I gotta wonder. Anyways, let's move on. So 3, words. Belmonte family, a lot of this is just like, what are these words? So I'll go over this as quickly as I can. People regarded them and were afraid of them as if they were vampires because of their tough mantle power and unlimited abilities. I can't tell what that letter is. Then the legendary family lived remote from the world. The literature tells that they became famous as a legendary noble family of mercenary ever since they'd appeared when the Crusades had been set. People began to call them as a noble vampire hunter family since they had subjugated Dracula at Wallachia. I think they're Wallachia or Wallachia. In 15th century. Wakiana? I'm not sure about that. They had some branch families. Many vampire hunter talented persons were, especially from Helsing, Morris, and Erickson families. So they're factoring in Van Helsing into this as well. 3 Belmonte families. So are they saying that Helsing, Morris, and Erickson families are all part of this? That I've never heard. I've never heard of the Van Helsings being part of this. Vampire Hunter, the talent of Vampire Hunter owed a lot to heredity, then to trainings. It was the most important thing not to be influenced by Dracula's aura rather than mental power or body. As one way of telling the talent of Vampire Hunter, the weapon chooses the man. This means that the mysterious powered weapon itself chooses the next user, which equals the Vampire Killer, when the current user is dying. So that's kind of interesting, because what that is saying, what sounds to me like it's trying to say, is that as someone is dying, so when a Belmont is dying, the whip chooses the person, which to me that goes against everything that the Vampire Killer stood for. It was more passed down. Maybe they were trying to say that it passes down through generations. That makes more sense, and that is kind of in line with the way that it's meant to be. The Belmont family had bore a lot of vampire hunters. However, extremely long periods of fights against Draculas resulted in lowering their talent, and they just disappeared in the 19th century. So they're just flat out saying that, in between all these fights, the Belmonts had lowered their talent, where I guess their presence was not needed. That's what this is saying, at least. Vampire Killer. There was a magical whip which Morris family had owned for a long time for beating vampires and monsters. The higher the user's mental power rises, which is Johnny Morris, the stronger the whip becomes. Again, as I said before in the Bloodlines review, John Morris was called Johnny Morris in the Japanese version of Vampire Killer, also known as Bloodlines here in the States. In the game, the rise of mental power is displayed by the crest. That's interesting. So they're saying that those crests that you would grab are raising mental power. Not the power of the whip, but the power of the person. That's kind of neat. What that's essentially saying is that it's the person that powers the Vampire Killer, not that the Vampire Killer's powering itself. That's kind of cool. 3 magical whips were confirmed since 15th century. Excalibur, which is owned by Belmont family, and Vampire Killer owned by Morris family. Death Mercury disappeared. So there were 3 whips, according to this lore. Excalibur, owned by the Belmonts, which is the primary. Vampire Killer, which is owned by the Morris family. So that goes against what we've assumed about the vampire killer. And I think this is mostly retconned by Koji Igarashi later on when he created Lament of Innocence. Death Mercury disappeared. So there was a third whip called Death Mercury, and that's gone. That's not around anymore. That's interesting. Now, they say that that Excalibur attacks as a fireball when the user concentrates. Belmont family seemed to use this very often in 18th century. That's during the whole Belmont's Revenge and Castlevania Adventure, because you would get the third power-up, and that would give you the ability to throw a fireball with your whip. Lecarde spear. Again, that's the Alucard spear. This magical spear was used by Eric Ricard, also known as Eric Lecarde. When the user Eric is in good mind condition, pale flame comes out from the tip of the spear. So that's one of the power-ups that you can get from the game. Nobody knows where it came from, but influential opinion is as follows. In the end of the 15th century, Urado Zepeche, Dracula's head, was chopped off by the spear, and they put the head on that spear to expose it before the castle gate until it got rotten. It is not sure either that it has something to do with Alucard or Alucard, who fought with Ralph C. Belmonte in the first Dracula subjugation. So it sounds, based on this, it sounds like they're speculating, like they don't know 100%, which is kind of silly because it's their lore. But based on this, it sounds like they're unsure. Move to the next page. Dragon Crest. The Alucard spear was sealed in the deep end of the Lecarde family's temple. The dragon-shaped crest was curved on that door. The key, which a mysterious old guy had given to Eric, keeps quiet about it. No one knows whether both the Zepeche family, or also known as the Dracula family, and Bartley family have Dragon Crest is just a coincidence or not. Okay. Dorothea Zentis. The mysterious old lady is Elizabeth's servant as well as a witch. I talked about this character on the Bloodlines review. Although she must have been executed with Elizabeth, she revives in the early 20th century. She uses monsters to beat vampire hunters who chase Elizabeth. Okay. Dracula's Castle, Satanic Castle. Konami's first Famicom disc game, Satanic Castle Dracula, also known as Akamaj of Dracula, has the first appearance of this castle. Dracula's Castle in Bram Stoker's Vampire, I think they're saying Bram Stoker's Dracula, designed after Castle Brunn, which is called the retreat no one can invade, stands on the top of the mountain no one has ever reached by the upper stream of Argesh River. In the game, the Dracula Castle is more like Ponari. I think that's another real-life castle that they designed it after. Anyways, character, Johnny Morris, date of birth, December 12th, 1895, age 22, date of birthplace, or date of place, why didn't they say location? Texas, or date of place of birth, I guess. Height, 183 centimeters, weight, 75 kilograms. Blood type B, character, bright and powerful, frank, short-tempered. Favorite foods, beef, barbecue, and milk. Dislikes foods, chicken meat, and wine. Okay. Things like to do, fight and swimming. Things dislike to do, criming higher place, cried by woman. Cried by woman. Okay. His family, maybe he doesn't like women, like to make women cry? I don't know. His family was a branch family of the noble vampire hunter Belmonte family and was active mainly in England, but since vampire hunting could not make enough money to live, they were forgetting their fate. In the middle of 19th century, Morris family moved to America to look for a new land after the gold rush in California. They succeeded in gold mining business in Texas. Morris family became the top-class billionaire there. Quincy, which is weird because before they said Kinsey, now they got it right. Quincy, the Johnny's father, went to, man, this is just fun to read, went to visit his old friend in England and came across Dracula. He fought but got killed. Johnny was 2 then. Okay, so Johnny was only 2 years old. Johnny studied a lot from a tutor and learned, that's misspelled, many sorceries from the senior Indian Morgan of Cow family. Is that right? Cow family? At the age of 18, he learned the history and their fate of Moore's family from his grandfather. He also took a test of magical whip vampire killer. Once he grasped the whip, red aura coming out of it covered whole his body, then it seemed to get inside the body and faded. The new life as a vampire hunter, Johnny Morris has started ever since. Johnny made consecutive successes in vampire hunting with the whip and the Indian sorcery. After beating some vampires at Saxonia, German Empire, where the World War I getting fierce in 1917, he went to the post town Bistritz in Romania for visiting his father Quincy Morris's grave with the help of German force. In Bistritz, monster showed up occasionally at Dracula's castle since a mysterious beautiful lady appeared. People hired someone's to kill the monster, but none of them returned. Johnny left to Satanic Castle with the mysterious guy called Eric. Oh, that mysterious guy. Eric Lecarde, also known to all of us as Eric Lecarde. Date of birth, May 3rd, 1892. He's 25. Date of place, again, birthplace, Segovia, Spain. His height, 176 centimeters, weight, 69 kilograms, and blood type is O. Character, he is usually a quiet person, but he becomes another person with the spear in his hand. He gets sharp eyes like a hunter and overwhelming power. His favorite food is any fruits, and he dislikes cheese and cakes. Those are like the best things ever, though. Things like to do, sculpture. Things dislike to do, swimming and collecting insects. So I guess Johnny and him didn't go swimming too often. There's a part here that's scratched out, and it says parts are confidential. I'm not sure why they're confidential, but we're gonna go into it. There's also some stuff on here that's crossed off, which I couldn't really see it. He was born as the second son of 5 brothers of Lecarde family, which had been guard in Old Town Segovia, known for the Snow White Castle and Roman water pipes. Like other family members had done, Eric began to learn martial arts, fencing, and other things at the age of 3, and when he was 10, he became the best fighter in the family, the best spear user in Spain. Eric preferred arts, sculpture, to martial arts, and he repeatedly argued with his father. He left his house to become a sculptor when he was 18. 5 years later, he was joining the construction of Sagrada Familia Church in Barcelona. On the night of storm and thunder, an old man came to visit him. He handed a key with Dragon Crest on it to Eric and said, "Evil Queen is reviving the Satan again to get Europe into the land of darkness and deads. Go back to your house in Segovia with this key. It is your own vampire hunter's fate." Then he's gone. Now it says here, it's like shaded out, but it says the old man was Michael R. Belmonte. So there's another Belmont named Michael R. Belmonte. Okay. That's new information. Eric made up his mind to go back after a few days' consideration. Lucy Seward, she was Eric's fiance. That Rickard, again, Lecarde family and Seward family had decided when Eric was 11. She kept waiting for him after he'd left home. She had her blood sucked by the vampire called Elizabeth 10 days before Eric came home. He met with her lying on the bed, and she said, "My soul is in Bistritz, Romania now. Please help my soul from the nightmare." Then she deceased calmly. Her body was buried with her head cut off and her heart pierced by a stake. Now, that name, Lucy Seward, is totally different than actually, well, let me see. That name is totally different than the name that she was given, which is Gwendolyn. So I don't know why they said Lucy Seward. If I recall, Lucy was the name of one of the characters in the Bram Stoker's Dracula. So that last name Seward also sounds familiar. So is it the same Lucy? That would be weird because I mean, Eric and Johnny were basically the same age or close to the same age. So what? I mean, Quincy Morris died when he was 2. So what? I don't know. This doesn't make any sense. So When Eric's rage against Elizabeth got almost exploded, the key which was given by the mysterious old man started to shine. It led Eric to the small marble temple in the corner of the Lecarde's house's garden. He opened the door with the key and found a blue spear glowing pale light tied with a chain. The chain got loosened on its own when he grasped the spear and felt shock inside the body. It was the beginning of his fate as a vampire hunter. That's pretty cool. I mean, the breakdown between like how he ended up getting the weapon was pretty neat. Let's move on to Dracula, the Count. Real name Vlado Zepece. So not the Matthias name that we've come to understand from what's it called? From Lament of Innocence. 1431 to 1476. Occupation: the feudal lord of Transylvania, Wallachia. So yeah, I think that's supposed to be Wallachia. So everybody knows Bram Stoker's Vampire Dracula. It is written in 1897. Dracula was set up after the real figure Vlado Zepece, who is a cruel lord. In 15th century Romania, Catholic countries, maybe? I don't know. Greek Orthodox Church and Ottoman Turkey were confronting each other. Also, small countries were becoming independent. He was born as a second son of small countries, Wallachia's lord. Zepece family had reigned this area for generations, but they are hated very much not only by their own citizens, but also other provinces' people. Vlado was called as Dracul, and known for his brutality at Turkish war and sadistic revenge. I think Vlad Tepes is what they're... Vlado Zepes. So Vlad Tepes is his name. He was poisoned in 1447. Dracula succeeded his father next year at the age of 17. Huh. Okay. He did the most brutal things in his family history. He was killed in Turkish war when he was trying to escape. Turkish army found his body and cut his head to a stick it with a spear for exposing it till getting rotten at the castle gate in Constantinople, Istanbul. On the other hand, his body without a head was buried at Snakobu Monastery in Bucharest. The above are historical facts. In this game, basic story is based on the last part of Vampire Dracula. Dracula's revengeful soul, which was destroyed to ashes once, revives and goes to England to search for his own body. Elizabeth Bartley, real name Elizabeth Bartley Ferenc, 1560 to 1614. But there's a question mark there. Didn't they say 1610 way above? Anyways, occupation Mrs. Count Ferenc. Okay, so since she desperately wanted eternity and eternal beauty, she killed hundreds of virgins in her whole life. She was the another female vampire from Transylvania. Again, this is based on Elizabeth Bathory, so keep that in mind. She was born in Transylvania, Hungary in 1560. Bartley family has long history in Transylvania and was told to have a relation with Vlado family, Dracula family. She was forced to engage with Nadazi Ferenc when she was a child. They married in 1575. When she was 15, they moved to Chet Castle in Nitote, Hungary. Even though they were newly married, Nadazi could not stay at the castle more than a few days a month, and Elizabeth felt frustration. Then she began to learn many things from female sorcerer Dorothea Sentis to torture her servants in the basement. In 1800, Nadazi died when Elizabeth was 40. She could not stop killing for women's blood anymore. In December 1610, Hungarian king heard the rumor about Elizabeth's blood worship and ordered Count George Terzo to investigate. He found thousands of used bodies in the basement of Chete Castle. They confined her in the room, which had nothing to look out through except a small window for the foods. She lived there for 4 years. Now, here is the interesting part. This is the part that I was like, whoa. They broke down a Belmont family tree here. And there's some pretty interesting information. So it starts off at the top here with Ralph and Cypher, which is Sypha. So fully admitting that Sypha was a woman. which again goes against, I believe, the manual of Akamaja Densetsu, which is Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, is saying that Sypha was a man, or they kept referring to Cypher as a man. So this goes against that. So it's pretty clear that as of Bloodlines, they knew that Cypher was actually Sypha and was a woman. Anyways, scrolling down here, you've got Cynthia, Christopher, Cynthia and Christopher, which I think maybe it's Cynthia and Christopher, had Saleyu. And now Saleyu, I guess, had brothers and sisters. Looks like a brother named Gerhardt, who strangely died, and Amanda. So Amanda was the sister. Amanda married Ralph Erickson, and now they have the Erickson family, which goes all the way down to a character named Bolt. Who knows who Bolt is? I do not know. But Bolt existed at the same time as Johnny, which is interesting. There's another character on this side, which we'll get to in just a second. Scrolling back up and going over here, we've got, so it looks like, so Ralph, also known as Trevor, and Cypher, also known as Sypha, had what looks to be 4 kids: Christopher, Anne, Frederick, and Mary. So we already talked about Christopher. Anne married a man named Royd Morris, and that's where the Morris family came into play. And going further down the line, we had Quincy and Mina, and so they had Johnny. Going back up, Frederick married somebody named, it looks like Jamie, or Jamis, or Janice. And those are apparently Simon's parents, Frederick and Janice. So Frederick Belmont, I guess. So Simon got together with a mystery woman. I think there was a woman named Celine. And then they had a kid who also married somebody and then had 3 kids. So Lehither had 2 other siblings, which were also Belmonts. Lehither married somebody, and they had 2 kids, according to this. Names unknown. So very specifically, Lehither ended up being just Belmont. So we could just say this is just Belmont. Going back up, Mary Belmont married Leo Hersing. Looks like Hersing. And that, or maybe Helsing? I think Helsing. And that became the Helsing family, and the Helsing family created Van Helsing, which is Abraham Van Helsing. I don't know why they didn't put Abraham. But that's it. That is the document. I found this incredibly interesting. There's a lot of stuff that I learned about this. A lot of backstory, further backstory into Bloodlines. A lot of really bad grammar. And it's just really interesting stuff. If you're a Castlevania nerd like me, at least, if you made it to the end of this video, then I applaud you, because this was super nerdy for me to break this down. But this will be made available to anyone, courtesy of myself. I'm going to put it up for anybody who wants it. You can email me. There's a link down below, and I will be happy to give it to you. Just send it to you in a PDF format, which is exactly what this is, and that way you have it. The reason why I'm not putting it online is I don't want people to just grab it directly from a link that could go potentially dead in the future. So if you're interested in getting this, just shoot me an email. The email address is dyhptg@gmail.com, and I'll be glad to send this to you. And that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment away. I want to hear what you have to say about this one, because this is pretty interesting stuff. Thanks, guys.